I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Amen. All right.
So we normally do who we are and all of that, and
We can or can't, it doesn't matter. Just, we can introduce ourselves as well.
let's just introduce. Tell me your name and what you do, and
So I'm Noah Nagel. I am the vice president of. Vice president. Sorry, very far out there.
That high-paying job, right?
Yeah, vice president of Patriots in Action.
how old are you?
Oh, do we
21.
have to tell that?
No, I just because I
21.
keep forgetting he's only 20.
We're very proud and happy to have Noah
Yes.
with us
Yeah.
because we need young people.
Yeah.
You know?
Where do you live?
In Wasion.
Okay. Did you go to Wasion High School then,
I
or
was in school.
homeschooled? Okay.
I love that
Well, good.
question.
Good.
Right, my turn?
Yeah.
All right, I'm Kelly Hopwright. Married to Mark. I'm old. I don't need to say
Just
my
wiser. Just wiser.
age. Yes. I'm retired, and I used to work in the hospital. I've done a lot of different things, very untraditional female roles as far as having a contractor's license when I was 20. I built houses and all of that, and then I got into the medical field, and then I continued on my research with private investigators. So I've done that a couple different times throughout my life. My parents, my aunt was FBI, my uncle was CIA. I spent a lot of
Really?
time with them
Okay.
in Virginia, so yeah.
Okay. Ever at Quantico? I think that's what it's called. Okay.
Yeah, no, I never
Okay.
went into, I did get to the Citadel
Okay.
once,
Mm-hmm.
but I was at FBI building all the time, because I would go into work and would get a pass to the Smithsonian's, and I would ride the
Oh,
bus
nice. Yeah.
on my own at 13 years old.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
excuse me, I broke my tooth this week, so sorry.
Oh, I noticed that. I'm so sorry. Are you okay? I mean, it hurts sometimes if you
Yeah.
expose a nerve.
Yeah, yeah.
What you
If it hit a nerve.
No, I fell about a year ago,
Oh, yeah.
and
Loosened
this
it.
was one of the things that got hit and it cracked, and
Oh,
it just
yeah.
this week it just finally.
That's all right.
You fell at the right place, though.
We're gonna give everyone grace. This is fine.
Yes.
No
I
judgment
fell at the
zone
hospital,
here.
right in front of the nurse's station,
Oh,
when he was having his knee
I
surgery.
had my knee replaced and
She
she
fell.
So she became the patient then, huh?
Oh, God.
I
come out good,
refused. I
walking
refused to
out.
go in. I'm like, no, wait, we gotta get him home. No, I'm good. I'm fine. And then later on, I couldn't breathe.
Oh, jeez.
So yeah, I separated the
We love
wall
you.
from my chest, my
Yeah.
heart, and all that fun stuff. Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
So
All right, I'm Mark. I'm her better half. I am 66 years old. I've been through cancer twice. I was brought up on the farm out north of Delta. My dad raised 350 acres of potatoes at one time. And after he lost his behind in them, he switched and we started raising produce. So then we went to strictly produce, and we had anywhere from pumpkins all the way through strawberries to,
Okay.
we
Collard
did greens, and turnips and sweet corn, and we raised it all, and we had a produce stand right there next to the ice cream thing at one time.
Okay.
so
I've
farmers
been
are
brought
very
up with,
near and dear to our hearts.
Yeah.
that's
Sure.
before all these machines, we did everything like
Sure.
this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's about it, I guess.
I used to work at DeKalb in Deschler way back in detasseling corn. That was fun.
Yeah, that's one thing with me. I was brought up, I knew how to work and I wasn't afraid to do it.
Yeah.
So when my dad decided to retire and get out of farming, I went to other jobs, and it's like, it's a lot easier when you're not working for your dad. You know, I mean, but you know, he taught us how to work.
You had a lot of
And I
good
wasn't
memories.
afraid to work,
Yes.
so.
Your turn.
So I'm Denise Swain. I'm a transplant from Toledo, Ohio. Grew up in the inner city of Toledo. We rehabbed 2 houses in the Old West End, and the perimeter of the Old West End is very sketchy, and our kids just started getting accosted for their bicycles and things like that, which is very sad, because I
Yes.
loved that neighborhood. We
Beautiful
belonged to
homes,
Rosary
yeah.
Cathedral Parish. We had a church family there, but we just didn't feel like we were safe there anymore, unfortunately. And so our daughters were always interested in horses, and they were already riding. So Chuck said, my husband Chuck of 43 years, he said, well, if we're gonna own them, they're gonna live at our house. So we bought 12 acres
Okay.
and a very run-down house. And we joke now that it was probably a burner downer and not a fixer-upper. But we got this beautiful little 11.83 acres of land and rehabbed the house over time. And yeah, so we love it in Swanton, and we love the rural lifestyle and the peace and the elbow room and all that.
Yeah.
I was always involved in politics as a young mom. The pro-life issue was very near and dear to my
Sure.
heart for many reasons. I worked at crisis pregnancy centers over the years, counseled girls who were either in crisis pregnancy or post-abortion, which is a very eye-opening, heart-wrenching situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I just noticed our group was also sued for $53 million by the local abortion center owner. Her name was Carol Dunn. I don't know if you remember Carol Dunn.
Yes, I do.
She owned all the Center for Choices.
Mhm.
We called them Center for Death, but she called
Yeah.
it Choice. And she sued us, and I was pregnant with our 4th child at the time, and I had to go to depositions, and it was serious.
How long ago
We
was
had to-
that?
This was in 1991.
Okay.
And she spent tens of thousands of dollars suing us on RICO charges as being pro-lifers out on the sidewalk, right? And we were having potluck dinners to pay our lawyer, but she was spending tons of money. And the paperwork from the floor was like this high. It was ridiculous. She ended up dropping the lawsuit on Our Lady of Guadalupe's feast day, which is a very important feast
Mhm.
day to Catholics. So we thought that was pretty ironic, and she didn't know what day it was, but we did. And so anyway, what I was sharing this about was because being in the courts and watching how things worked when we were getting sued,
Sure.
etc., we saw how it was kind of rigged. And the people in Toledo, the court system was rigged in her favor. She knew everybody. They were all buddies. They all slapped each other on the backs when she would walk in the room, and we were guilty before proven innocent. So thankfully she dropped the lawsuit. But anyway, that was eye-opening to me, and I just decided there's something amiss here. I don't know what it is, but everything was slanted against pro-lifers, whether it be in the newspaper, radio, any reporting on what we did was always, we were the crazies. We were the ones breaking the laws when we had every right to be out on the public sidewalks. So
Well,
that's what got me involved in
sure,
politics. I
sure.
started paying attention.
Yeah.
How are my reps voting on this issue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know one of the things that I think is going to help, because we used to think, like in the law, the judges keep that, it's not political. Well, it is political, and that's
Yes.
why we put in law, which I supported, where like the Supreme Court justices, they were already Republican or Democrat, but now they are. They put the R or the D behind it. And we
Yeah.
also did with the Court of Appeals level. And I think we need to even go down further to the local judges so people realize who they're supporting. Now in the past, I thought, keep that because it isn't, but the more, because of stories like this, there's some issues there that I think we need to look at.
So you believe that issue in particular, we can go right into the questioning part if
Yeah,
you don't
no,
mind,
no.
but we would
I'll
like you
share a
to-
little bit about myself
Yes,
first.
please do that first, yeah.
Well, Jim Hoops. I grew up in Deschler, Ohio, which is in the southern part of Henry County. Went to Patrick Henry High School. as you can tell by my brochures here, I'll give you these here.
I haven't received
You-
any in the mail.
I've been getting through the day from
which-
both.
Which ones, the good ones or the bad
You
ones?
guys figure out how to save money,
I
because this
don't
is
know.
not to
I
cost
know,
you.
I know. Well, anyhow, went to Patrick Henry and then received a scholarship in basketball to play Division I down in Louisiana. I took a trip down there during January, and it was snowed really hard up here while I was down there, and it was nice down there. I said, you know, that wouldn't be a bad place to go to school. So I ended up going down there, received a degree in computer programming and business. And that's when the computers were like the size of this room. It was before, you know, the smaller computers. And then from there, I went to Canada and played up in British Columbia and played with a team called Athletes in Action, which is affiliated with Campus Crusade for Christ. And we did we would do a program like during halftime of games. In fact, in our team, we were like the preseason game for the major colleges. Like we played Duke. In fact, I remember being in Cameron Hall and doing the program, you know, on top of the, you know, their mascot, and losing my place because it would echo in the gym. You know, and Coach K, if you're familiar with, you know, he recruited me when I was in high school and he was at West Point at the time.
Oh, that's right, you would.
And, but he went to Duke.
I'm glad you know
so-
who he's talking about.
It's a great coach. He's
Yeah.
the most winningest coach. But anyhow, so we would play all these schools and then, you know, share and had basketball camps, and it was all revolving around using basketball as a way to talk about your relationship with Jesus Christ. And I did that for 3 years. So you may hear me say y'all or A, you know, depending on, you know, because up there they go
Canada
A.
A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I came back home. I was the Henry County Auditor and learned a lot about property taxes, which became, you know, is very important in today's, situation. And then I became a state legislator back in 99 to 2006. And during that time, that's when we passed the bill for concealed carry. And that was back when, you know, people thought, well, if this thing passes, we're going to have a big gunfight at the OK Corral. And I also, you know, voted to overturn a veto that Governor Taft put on dealing with, you know, what they could carry in a car. You know, there was an issue there, and he vetoed that part of the bill. Well, we overturned it, and I supported the overturn. So, you know, that was one thing I remember. Plus, just other things, you know, during that time. And then I got out of it from like 2000 and the beginning of 7 all the way to 2018. Never thinking I'd be back. During that time, I worked for an organization called AMP Ohio, which is American Municipal Power, which is made up of organizations or communities who own their own electric system. So again, that was another issue, that energy, you know, dealing with energy. And I was in the finance area where we financed over $6 billion of projects, like a coal plant, hydro, gas. We even did some wind at that time too. And so I was there for about 9 years, and then I came back home and worked at a community college at Northwest State Community College, which is, you know, outside of Archibald. And I was involved with workforce development, you know, and collaborating, bringing people together, which is another issue and then one day I received a call from somebody in Columbus saying, Jim, would you be interested in going for the appointment for the state senate? And I said, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't looking for anything. I enjoyed what I was doing, working with communities, and then a half hour later, I received a call from Rob McCauley. And he said, Jim, I just want you to know that I'm gonna go for that Senate seat, because he was the state rep at the time. And I said, Rob, that's great. And so then they called again and asked me about the House seat, and I said, I'll go home and ask my wife, and she's probably going to say, no, I don't want you. But instead, she said, yes, go ahead and do it. I mean, it's like, she wanted me out of the house or something. I don't know what it was.
She wanted you in the other house.
Yeah. And so I never thinking I would be, going down again, and it happened. And so back in 2018, I got involved with it again. And I guess I always cringe when, with some of the ads that I'm a career politician, and I'm going, there's nothing career about that. I mean, I was out of it, and luckily, because of the things I learned while I was, back out of the politics, I learned a lot with energy, with workforce development, and then with this property tax issue. So, and since that time, I've been, working on, during the second time tour, I guess, we've had to deal with a pandemic, removing a speaker who did some bad things, and I can tell you, with this speaker, he was the speaker the first time I was down there, and I never supported him back when he was speaker the first time.
I'm sorry, can you tell me his name, because I'm
Larry
still learning.
Householder.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, he became speaker, the first time around, and I always supported the other guy. So in a contested speaker race, I never supported him. Now, in a non-contested, you just vote yes. So if somebody wants to look up the voting, yeah, because there was no one else running against him. But I tried to work with them because I felt it was important, for the district, you have to work with the person in charge. And you'll find me as somebody that tries to work with them. We may not always agree on things, but I'm gonna try to find a solution on issues. And so the second time then, he actually came back and ran for speaker again. Again, I did not support him, but he ended up getting it on a vote because some of the Democrats and Republicans voted for him, even though the other person, Ryan Smith, actually had more Republicans during that time. Kind of like what happened, with this so-called Blue 22. That actually happened like 4 years earlier when Ryan Smith, we had more Republicans than Larry Householder, but Larry was able to get, some of the Democrats too, so he became speaker. So that's fine. I mean, he was speaker then, and working with them, but during that time, then this thing with House Bill 6 came up. And I did support House Bill 6. I felt there was an issue there, a concern that we would lose the nuclear plants. And we needed nuclear. The more, now looking back, we did need it, but then we found out that he was doing some things on the side that no one knew about. And I always tell people, I supported the things that were happening in the State House, not what was happening in the outhouse. And as soon as we found that out, we asked him to resign. In fact, in this race, I was the only candidate that actually, we had a caucus, meaning it was all the Republicans, where between you and Mark, Larry was sitting right there, and I told Larry, you need to resign for the good of the institution.
And you're right.
And my opponent talks about that I was in cahoots with this guy. I said, I was never in cahoots. I've never taken money from the guy.
Can we back up for just
Yeah.
a minute to House Bill 6?
Yeah.
So, you were concerned we might lose some, other
Well,
options for
okay.
energy, but what was House Bill 6?
House Bill 6 was to help with the nuclear plants. It was something like a subsidy for them.
Okay.
However, the other thing that House Bill 6 did, back in 2008, the state put in place these energy efficiency charges on ratepayers. And you can go back and look at your things where you were paying extra every month because of these energy efficiency programs that were put in place. And this is before I was there. I'm just saying, and House Bill 6 was gonna take that out. So that would have saved the ratepayers like $3 billion. And then House Bill 6 also had some other things in there. But once this thing blew up with Householder, the new Speaker of the House, Bob Cupp, asked me to become chair of a committee to study that and just to see, okay, what should we keep, what should we take away, You know, what was good, what wasn't good. And the one thing that I remember, and I wanted to put it in before, was to do a complete audit to see if these nuclear plants actually needed, you know, this payment. And they didn't want to do that, and they finally said, we don't want the subsidy. So they never received this subsidy, you know, because we, you know, with our committee, with my committee that I ran, we were able to undo all that, or study it and undo it, because I sponsored a bill to undo all those things.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
But we kept that part where we got rid of the energy efficiency costs or charges, so that ratepayers would save money there. One of the issues that you see come, you know, is the utility bills just increase because of House Bill 6, and that is not correct. The reason why we've had issues with energy is because of the law of supply and demand, where during Biden's administration, he had coal plants closing down here in Ohio. And what the problem was, he didn't replace it with anything. And so that's the issue. House Bill 6 never even came into being, you know, because we stopped it with House Bill 128, which I sponsored, was sponsored along with Dick Stein, you know, to get rid of House Bill 6. And then, you know, then finally, House order, he didn't resign, so we removed him, which I voted for, and he was, you know, he was done. And so now he's trying to get a pardon with Trump. So, and hopefully, hopefully President Trump doesn't allow that to happen. So,
Hopefully you're right.
so that was an issue. You know, another issue that you know, I worked on is the property taxes. You know, being a former county auditor, I was involved with you know, the issue of property taxes, and I sponsored House Bill 186, because I feel, you know, when you look at all the issues that we're going to be dealing with, the kitchen table issue is property taxes, meaning everybody's talking about it. And
What was that bill again?
it was 186 House Bill.
Yeah.
There were 5 bills that we passed so far, and the governor signed, that I was involved with, but I actually helped sponsor. I co-sponsored the other ones, but I actually worked more on this House Bill 186.
And to co-sponsor it is someone else introduces the bill.
Right.
And then you guys jump on it.
Right.
That makes you a co-sponsor.
Right.
Saying, I do support this.
Right. But I worked on it, you know, with the guys who sponsored it, because I understood, you know, what, like inside millage and outside millage, voted
Sure.
stuff, because of being a former county auditor.
Yeah.
But the 186, and what we tried to do is, because there was a big spike in taxes, you know, these last 5 years, because values have jumped.
Yeah.
Now, are we done yet? No, we still have to do some things. And the other thing that's pushing this too is this ballot issue that would, if it gets on the ballot, would and it passes, it would get rid of property taxes as a 127. And I can tell you, I don't want to pay more property tax or any property taxes. However, all I want to see, I'm a reformer, I'm not a repealer. I never changed my mind on that either. You know, unlike, you know, I have always been to reform it, because what would happen if we got rid of all the property taxes, that would be $24 billion that would disappear. And that's money that stays locally, you know, and so, but I also realize we have to do something, because I do not want to see anybody lose their home or their land because of property taxes. Now, when I say, look, yeah.
Sorry.
What I mean is, we have to look at the, you know, how the taxes are calculated, but on the other side, we also have to look at how government is run. You know, and that means everything from fire, EMS, townships, villages, cities, the state, county, all of that. And all I ask is that we have a good debate on exactly what the people, because we're all in this together, want to do, you know, with the services. You know, so that's one issue I want to continue to work on. Another one is housing. I want to make sure that, because that was one of the issues that created, I feel, this property tax mess because of the lack of housing. We need more housing out there. And I was involved with some state tax credits to develop more housing. And then these developers would get tax credits because it would incentivize them to help build. But we found with a study that was done that the state really, even though they gave a credit, they would not lose money because of the money that they would generate through jobs. And so the Department of Taxation would still get the money, they would end up getting money, but in a different way. So that's another issue. Another issue is energy.
Can I
Yep,
share
yep,
something
nope,
real quick?
absolutely.
So when we bought our second house in the Old West End, we financially qualified for a neighborhood housing service program.
Yep.
And so you had to be at a certain income level,
Sure.
and they interviewed you. It was very down homey feeling, because it wasn't about, okay, you only make this much and you want to buy a house. It was more like, who are you? What kind of person are you? What
Sure.
kind of character do
Right.
you have?
Was that back in the 80s?
Early 90s, early
yeah.
90s.
Okay.
And we qualified, and it helped us buy this big, beautiful house in the Old West End that was run down and vacant,
Mm-hmm.
but very solid, and not based on income necessarily, like, can you afford this?
Sure.
But are you going to help bring back the neighborhood?
Yep.
Are you going to add
But your
something?
integrity,
You're
right.
gonna live in this home and make it a home, and you had to agree to live there for 5 years.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and that's exactly what we did. I'm thinking, what a great program. Why isn't there more like this to help young couples especially?
Sure.
I'm thinking everything you talk about when you talk about making housing more available, we should be focused, I think personally, on young families.
Sure.
Because that's what we were, and someone gave us a leg up, not a handout.
Well, you have homes, like with seniors. I mean, do they want to continue to stay in the house they have because of all the yard work and things? Or do you want to build something, nice condos? And I'm not talking about Section 8 type housing. I'm
Right.
talking about good housing, but the problem, the challenges is like the development fees, because you have to put so much in, to begin with, like roads, streets, and sewer, water, all that, before you can even start building.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of things we put in place. In fact, in the budget, we passed a bill that where there was like a new project, like a new business coming in, and if it created so many jobs within like 20 miles, that area could qualify for some money to develop lots, because if you get these jobs that create more jobs, you need people. Well, where are the people going to live? And so that was in the budget. There were a lot of things in the budget, and the reason I bring that up, I know another issue, in the budget we passed the income tax cut. We put that back to, now it's at 2.75, across the board. And the thinking is, do we get rid of it all? But we also have to be responsible, and what I mean by that is, when I run, I get questionnaires, and usually the first question is, what taxes do you want to get rid of taxes, and what taxes do you want to get rid of? The second question is, if you said yes to question one, what programs do you want to get rid of? I mean, we have to be responsible with that, and so that's what we have to look at. I always say the budget is to educate, medicate, and incarcerate. The education is a big part. The health care with Medicaid, because then you're looking at drugs, you're looking at nursing homes, all kinds of programs. And then if you get rid of Medicaid dollars, the state dollars, you're also getting, for like every 40 cents we spend, from Ohio, we get 60 cents from the feds. I mean, it's just all intertwined with this thing. And so you're not just losing the 40 cents, you're losing the 60 cents. But
It's
again,
multidimensional.
yeah, well, you would know being
right.
in the, yeah. And so those are all the
Right.
things that we have to look at when we look at these things. And
But like going back to like the housing costs and things like that, and everything trickles down from there. But as a state, we have allowed too many outsiders, other countries, other entities, developers, to grab land.
That's
Oh,
right.
yeah.
And they're hungry because they'll take anything
Right.
and let it sit.
Yeah.
That's why Lucas County right now has what they were planned on doing, 90 some house demolishes this year.
Yeah.
And last year they did like about 100.
Yeah.
And they have like 900 on the list.
Yeah. That's a good lead in
And-
into your questions about the data centers
I was-
and solar
Right.
farms.
I was told
Really good
that
lead
there's a
into that.
place, there's something along the river. Someone just talked to me about this, that a company or a person from China owns, there's an area along the Maumee River, and they're trying to get that from them, or from China. And so that can be a discussion from another day, but those are the kind of things I want to work on.
For China, people need to go bye-bye.
Yeah.
But-
As far as-
Make
as far as
China great
buying our-
again.
Well, we do have a bill in place where that would make it illegal for certain countries to buy land.
What's with the bill?
But-
What's the status of the bill?
It's stalled right now.
Which
Uh-huh.
one,
And
is,
who's
which one
stalling
is it? Do you know?
That's a
probably-
good question.
I probably wouldn't know what.
I think it might be House Bill 1,
Okay.
but I'm not sure. I can look that up afterwards.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I'd like to know.
but the reason I was talking about the budget, you had like the income tax cut, you had, like vouchers, you had public education money, you had, we even put in there a definition that there's a man and a woman, nothing else. And then we had some other things that I supported. The one thing I did not support was putting in this Brown Stadium issue. Although I tried to get an amendment in that if the Browns didn't win a World Series within 10 or a Super Bowl within 10 years, they had to pay it back sooner because it's an economic development
Yeah.
project and they have to pay it back. I mean, it's,
What's your return on the dollar, really?
Right.
Well-
We're investing in you.
yeah, I mean,
Give
no,
it back.
they're gonna have to, plus interest, they're gonna have to pay it back. So, but, what occurred, you have this, this budget, you look at it, and I try to be in the room so I can make the budget the best that I possibly can, because I wanna vote for it, because of all these things that are in there. So I try to, so I look at, well, the income tax, this thing I like, the Browns thing I didn't like, and I basically made a decision that said I like more than I dislike, and so I voted for it. I mean, that's because I can tell you if I wouldn't have voted for it, then you probably would have got other, brochures saying, well, he voted against an income tax cut.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just things like
That's the problem
that.
with bills. There's so much piled onto them that
And that's,
we need single issue bills
Right.
again.
And
so
that's-
that we know what you're voting for, and boom, that's it. You voted for one thing,
Well-
and then we can keep track of that. But when you pile it on,
And,
then
and I've
then
noticed, yeah.
then people that we actually voted for and support are being put into this position, like you just described. And then, well, it sullies your record a little bit, but then we're like, that is not
Well-
what we sent you to do.
well,
Why are you
and
voting for this
that's
garbage?
been one of the biggest changes from when I was there my first 8 years to when I came, was all these, like the budget bill especially, everything's kind of thrown in there.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I wanna, I wanna see changed, because it really came out with this budget with a lot of things in there. The data centers, we can talk about that.
Let's
I
do
feel
that.
with the data centers that there's a need out there for them. When you look at your cell phones, these things, the computers, anything electronic that goes over, it goes into this cloud. Well, the cloud is the data center. I remember being at a meeting about 4 weeks ago, and this person was running for county commissioner, and she was saying, well, the cloud up there, and I'm kind of like, oh boy, this is not good, because that's the cloud now. And I guess, where do we want to put those things? And do we, because I don't want to see them in another country. I'd rather see them somewhere here in the United States. Now the question becomes, I think there needs to be more transparency. There needs to be more study. In fact, we passed a bill in the House. It's over in the Senate to deal with that, you know, to put together a study committee. That probably should have been done like a year ago. You know, but all of a sudden these data centers come out of nowhere. Now everybody's looking for something, you know, a place to put them. Because I feel that just like the solar and wind with Senate Bill 52, which again I was involved with when it came from the Senate over to the House, because I chaired that Public Utilities Committee meeting. And that's the bill where now there's more local control, you know, to bring like a solar or wind project into an area. The county commissioners can, you know, pass a resolution that says, well, we don't want it in our county, or we don't want certain areas of the county to be able to have solar and wind. And that's based on, you know, referring to the township trustees, you know, because we also put in place where the townships can look at, you know, whether or not they want it. And that's one thing I encourage every time at a township meeting, to encourage townships to actually re-look at zoning. Now I know zoning is, you know, that's you know, because we don't want government telling us what to do with our land, and we want that freedom. However, when you have solar, wind, data centers, what's going to be next? And I feel in order for people to protect, you know, their property out there, I feel that the townships need to look at that with advice, or, you know, with comments from the township residents, because I can't even imagine what else is going to be coming in. But getting back to the data centers, the things I want to see is, you know, the ability for locals to determine if they want those data centers in their area, because they can be beneficial as far as bringing in revenue, you know, for whatever.
It takes at least 10 years for them to be flush. It takes about 10 years. But by then, well, it takes 10 years to build one of them. By the time they're built, the chances of the equipment that they've fit this building, everything for, will be outdated. Because technician, you know, you got new phone
Right.
comes out, newer, better, whatever. A big problem I have with the data centers, number one, is the emissions that it puts out in the air, the vibrations in the air, the sound, the dirt. I mean, the blight is ugly. And it's because if you have somebody with a neurological disorder, our youngest son has had 38 brain and spine surgeries. We have what's called Chiari malformation, but it is a spectrum of disorders, and it is, studies are leading more towards it. It was brought on by trichloroethylene, which that's a whole big other story. But if my son, if they built one of those close to us, and that would bother him so bad,
Sure.
he probably, his nervous system would shut down, his heart would not work. I mean, it's nasty. And I'm not just saying just for what he has. You get somebody who has Alzheimer's.
Sure.
That's a neurological disorder. You get, how many children are being born today because of Asperger's, autism,
Right.
you know, Down syndrome. I mean,
Right.
it goes on and on.
Well, and those are the kind of things we have to look at and study, because
There's
you're
studies
right.
going on right now about it.
Right, and that's why this committee is so important to deal with that. And the other thing is, like you said, technology is changing rapidly. And so we have to really look at what we want to put in place out there, because, you know, a lot of water, well, now they have a closed loop system. Energy, where are they going to get the energy? I mean, I think that's something, you know, do we make it so they have to be closed loop to save
Right.
water? Number two, I feel they need to have their own energy. You know, we
Right.
passed House Bill 15, which is behind the meter, meaning they're going to be able to build their own energy their own energy project, so that they can make the energy right there.
Yeah.
That would keep it off the grid.
That's what
And that
Trump's
would-
been working with.
Oh,
Right.
he made a
He's all
statement
about
about a half a month ago where they have to build their own. So those are the kind of
Yeah,
things.
he met with
That-
all
Right.
of them, and it was aired. You could listen to everything they were
Yeah.
saying.
But with
Yeah.
House Bill 15
Mhm.
is to boost the power generation for tech hubs like the Intel and the data centers. Many of your constituents feel shut out by this and by the decisions being made because of the NDAs that are coming up.
Well, we did introduce another bill with the non-disclosure agreements. And I think,
Is that the data center grid cost? No, that's the cost.
no,
responsibility
these
act.
are agreements, I mean, these have been around a long time. And basically what occurs is that when there's something going on, usually the companies or developers will ask like an official or somebody to sign an agreement. So when people come up to you and say, if you sign an agreement, or Mark, you sign an agreement, say, Mark, what's going on here? You know, and you'll say, well, I can't tell you because I just signed this agreement. Guess what the constituent is going to do when he hears that? And so we have a bill, but it's basically to protect the integrity of the project, because if you start telling people what's happening, I mean, for example, like if they find out Meta, you know, is one of them building something out there, people are could buy stock, and the stock could skyrocket because of what, I mean, that's why these things to protect.
Congress and Senate's already got that under
Well,
control.
I'm not
doing
going to
enough on
disagree
their
with you.
own.
I'm just saying, but what we did, there's a bill that's introduced that would just allow local officials to sign those things. Because I think as local officials, you're putting yourself in a
I think
bad
as local
situation.
officials, they need to stand up for their constituents because
Well,
that's what they're voted and put into that
but see,
position for.
that's the thing with transparency, because I think like in Fulton County, you know, just talking with local officials, I mean, they've told me, we know nothing of, we knew nothing about what was going on there, you know, and I mean, you look at do you believe them or not? I mean, I've known some of these people for a long time. Now there's other people who said don't believe them. I mean, the transparency part,
And the
you know,
normal
believing
everyday
people.
person sees it
Oh,
as
well,
not transparent, and
yeah,
they get
that's what
they get
happens.
very angry and they want to fight back. But that's what we're
Right,
doing.
right.
You know, we're
What is
fighting
your
No.
back.
House bill called that you're introducing that's gonna disallow local officials?
Well, it's already been introduced.
Does
but-
it have a name?
Yeah, it has a number, but I'm not sure what it
Okay.
is. But it's a number that's in the House.
Okay,
So that, I mean, we're working on that one with the data centers, but I think,
Would you be willing, or would you commit today, to support a ban on NDAs for the public officials, ensuring that these billion-dollar data centers, not Ohio families, pay for their own massive energy and water demands?
I think,
We
I like
definitely-
the
this is
water,
something we need.
the energy, they're gonna have to pay for it. The other thing that we're looking at is back in 2008, when John Kasich was governor, they put in a bill and passed it, and again, I wasn't around when this happened, they would sales tax exemption, where they don't have to pay sales tax. We put in this last budget where that would be taken out, where they had to pay sales tax, but the governor, DeWine, vetoed that. And that's one of the,
Who would have to pay the sales tax, or not have to pay the sales
right, what was,
she's asking though, who?
Who would not?
have to pay
oh,
the
data centers,
So it was
the
in.
companies.
So
Okay.
there
It was a
this
bill that was passed back
back-
in 2008 that exempted data centers from having to pay
And that
sales
umbrellas all the way
tax.
through from the beginning to the developers
Well,
and the.
It was just something because it was a tool that economic development could use and say, hey, you come to Ohio. I mean, that's not the only thing. I mean, it was other companies too, but data centers seem to be the big issue today. And
Data
so,
centers, the wind and solar, those are my big
right.
bills.
Yeah.
And
We need the farm ground.
well, no, that's absolutely right. And we also have to look at how do we find ways of protecting farm ground, because you have, farmland, if you own, 300 acres and somebody comes up and says, hey, I'll pay you $50,000 an acre. I mean, and again.
I know some people in Fulton County that turned down $4 million.
And then that's what has to happen, but they're,
But I also understand why somebody would sell it.
well,
I mean,
and
I
that's
get
why.
it. I mean, I get it, but the problem is there needs to be more put in place to protect the farmers and the local your constituents versus
To be
these
put under
big
that
corporations.
pressure, yeah.
But that's why I'm asking, I always tell the township trustees and the residents who live in those townships, that's why zoning is so critical. I mean, because if you don't look at that, you're opening yourself up for things. And like I said, you had, you know, solar, wind, data centers, what's gonna happen next? And so I'm just saying, I think that's something, you know, cause the state's not gonna be able to, I mean, we don't wanna get more involved with local decisions. I mean, I think people don't wanna see that. And so I think that's why it's very important that townships and you know, really look at that issue of zoning, you know, and I think that's what's happening, you know, in the eastern part or the western part of Fulton County right now in German Township, so.
When you talk about that, you're talking about the Ryder Solar Field, or?
Well, that's in Fayette.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean-
sorry, I'm not 100% familiar with township wise, so.
Oh, well, I'm just talking about
Oh.
the township government, they
Yeah.
can, as township trustees, they can put in place zoning.
Okay.
And in the zoning, they can determine, you wanted agriculture, you know, or they not outlaw, but, yeah, I guess that's, you know, where you can't build certain types of businesses
Yeah.
in the area.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have it, it just opens it up.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why a lot of townships don't have zoning is because the resident, because you have to vote on it.
Yeah.
And the residents are saying, I don't want government telling me what I
Yeah.
can build and what I can't build. So you have to kind of
Wow.
talk it
Yeah.
through to kind of determine, okay, what do we want to allow, what we don't want to allow. So,
My biggest problem is all the water they're gonna use, but then what are they doing with it when it's done?
yeah, well,
In our ditches, creeks,
Right.
eventually it's gonna be in the Maumee, it's gonna go to
Yeah,
Lake
in one of the
Erie.
meetings they brought up, they said, oh, we could bring in, evaporators, big evaporators to evaporate all that water. I'm like,
yeah, see, I don't know that much,
the
but
chemicals go in the air then for us to breathe.
I,
And then it travels and it goes into the ground and,
right,
I mean, from what the studies I've done for the trichloroethylene issues and the neurotube deficits that come from that. We live in Delta.
sure,
I'm sure you've heard of Marky Bronze and the mess that we have there. Marky Bronze is the reason why there are so many patients out of northwest corner that have there's like second generations of families from Delta, from our area,
sure,
across the country. I've talked with a lot of them. I've received mail. They've been included in our studies that we sent to Akron. They're all saying this trichloroethylene, and it trickles down and it goes into the family, and you're not going to see it right away. I swam in Bad Creek as a kid. My grandparents owned Catch Bite. We lived in the basement in the winter, or was it basement in the summer, up in the attic in the winter. I mean, that's how I lived as a child. It was a family business. We played in that creek. We swam in it. Now my children, I have it, but it's not at as bad of a rate as my son does. And this is what we're finding. You know, it's inconceivable that my off-the-record conversation with someone from the EPA said I'm completely right. Yes, it is caused by trichloroethylene. Yes, it is part of this damage children are having, but the government can't handle all of the fallout of that. Okay. Now in Delta, just to go a little bit further, they're only going down 2 feet deep, digging up the ground and getting rid of the dirt only 2 feet down. They need to go 9 feet down.
There's no way that's only 2 feet deep.
Yeah, and it's not.
Farming for years and all the rain.
I mean, you're talking about the
Marky
manufacturing that they tore down
Yes.
and then,
A few years
Yeah.
ago, the EPA did come out to Delta, and they were testing grass clippings from over there where Ziegler's used to live. You know where I used to live back in the woods there?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
behind the barn
And
restaurant
that's
back in
probably
the-
what, 2 miles from Marky Bronze?
Somewhere in that.
About 2
area.
miles from Marky
Okay.
Bronze. Grass clippings were coming up with bad chemicals in it. Grass clippings. Where does it come from? The ground. the whole town. They took dirt from Marky Brown's, backfilled houses in the town. They used them as driveways. They, you know, the burn,
When they were tearing it down? they
no, when they, all over the years,
Okay.
when they were in operation, before they started remediating by enclosing the dust particles and
did? Yeah,
transferring them someplace else.
So they created a nightmare and
It
they
is.
can't manage it.
Right. But the government is the EPA.
Yeah.
And I don't trust the EPA now because of that. But because of
I
that,
wonder if Lee Zeldin is, I'm sure he's aware of, he's got so much on his plate, you know.
I
He
literally-
just sat before
yeah.
Congress yesterday or whatever. And I don't think they know what they're doing in Congress. I don't think they realize what's being done to their constituents. And honestly, I don't think they really care.
but you see
You
what,
know.
what this has happened in our small area. Then when you look like in California, if you look at the birth rate of children being born with neurotube deficits, with autism is,
Well, they're
What was
not
it?
being born with it necessarily all the time,
Right.
but it's like a 30% increase.
right,
Or
they're
30%
born with
more.
the trigger. They're
Yeah.
born with the trigger.
Yeah, it's
And when they
gross.
get their vaccines, it clicks the trigger on. I mean, I could go
Well,
deep.
no,
I could go
So,
deep, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
so what
But
other
this
topics
is-
do we want to
well,
discuss
Yeah.
tonight
the one
too?
thing
Yeah.
too, you know, I talked about the subject I want to deal with, you know, like property taxes, housing, energy. Another one is with education, with workforce development. I mean, we have a lot of people retiring. We're an aging state.
We're an
And
aging
people,
country.
people are retiring, and we need to make sure we, you know, get the skill sets out there to do these, you know, in the future. The other issue is, and you brought it up a little bit, is dementia. I mean, and the reason I have a interest in that is my father-in-law has dementia. And the thing is, it's not only the person who has it, but it's also the caretakers.
Right.
And when you have a family dynamic, when there's disagreements on how to take care of that, you know, that situation. So that's another issue that I'm becoming more aware of just getting the information out to the caretakers so they don't
Right.
feel alone, like they're on an island.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the problem is people wait too long
Well-
before they seek help because of
Yeah.
the stigma behind it.
Yeah.
They wait too long to seek help when there are medications out there that can help
right.
slow the
Yep,
progress
yep.
down.
Yep.
So
So,
I
and the
feel
other
like
one
we're-
is,
I feel
one
like
more.
we're bouncing all over
Okay.
the place, but
Well, one more is rural health care too, with our hospitals. And that's another, when I look at, you know, Fulton County Hospital, Henry County Hospital, to make sure, because I would rather stay there, like Bryan Hospital, Defiance,
You haven't
Be-
been in the hospital
people-
much, have you?
people staying there instead of going, you know, having to go to Toledo. Now,
Yeah.
if it's a major surgery, then yeah, then you have your certain levels where, because you don't want all the hospitals to have all this expensive
We had
equipment.
to travel, we
Because
traveled to
healthcare, right,
Johns Hopkins,
Yeah.
Ben Carson, we know him.
yep,
He was our
Okay.
son's first, he did his
Sure.
first 2-3
Okay.
surgeries. That's where we had to go.
okay. But one of the issues I'd like to talk about is this thing, men playing women's sports. That is an issue that I've been very disappointed in how I'm being attacked on that issue. And I want to go over what exactly happened on that issue. And I'm not going to disagree with my opponent saying I made these votes. But what I'm going to disagree on, the reasons I did those votes, and what actually occurred during that time. So if I can take the chance, okay, or the
Yeah.
opportunity.
yeah, please do.
Okay, back in 22, you know, that was a big issue of men playing in women's sports. I have always supported legislation so that biological males could not play in women's sports. The one thing you're going to see on me is I'm a person that there's a process in getting legislation through. And what I mean by that is you have an idea, you know, that maybe originates in the Senate or in the House. You go through a process, because if you don't, that's when unintended consequences occur. And so, and what I mean by the process is that a bill's introduced, it goes to a committee, and then you have proponent and you have opponent, testimony. And then if it gets out of committee, it goes onto the floor, in this case, the Senate floor. If it passes out of the Senate, it then goes over to the House. It goes through committee, proponent, opponent, goes on the House floor. And if it passes there, then it goes on to the governor. If it goes to the House and the House says, wait a minute, we want some other things in there, okay? They pass it, well, in order for it to go to the governor, it then has to go back to the Senate where they have to concur. Okay, and then it goes to the governor. You probably already know this, but I'm just kind of setting up the framework here. It goes to the governor, and then he can sign it or veto, and then we get into another issue here. What occurred in this situation? The Senate had a bill. It was the NIL bill, which was the name, or NLI bill, the name, likeness, Senate Bill 187. Went through committee over in the Senate. It passed out of the Senate. It came over to the House. It went through committee, the House committee, proponent, opponent. It got on the House floor. Well, during that time, there were some Republicans saying, because at the same time we were working on this men not playing women's sports. And they were working on the language and everything. They said, hey, let's put this in this bill.
Yeah, see, that's what
And
normal people don't know.
That's from what I know.
okay, well, this is why I want to share it with you, to everybody. This group wanted to put it in there, and I always worked with the Senate because I was able to do some things like with the aquifer up in Williams County, because I had to work with the Senate to get language in, and that could be another story I could tell you about. But when they started talking about that, the Senate over here, the leadership, Huffman and McCauley and those guys said, listen, we like the bill the way it is. We don't want you putting it in there. And if you do, we're not going to concur, and that bill dies. And me thinking, I like this language too. And so, but we have some individuals who basically said, we're going to play chicken, and we don't really care what the Senate says. Even though they're Republicans, we still have that. That's what makes it an interesting dynamic. It's easier if it was controlled by the Democrats, then you can, but even with Republicans,
It's crazy.
with Republicans in the House and the Senate, there's that dynamic there. And so what occurred on the House floor is that this group decided we're going to put it in. I voted to table. It wasn't because I disagreed with the language, it was just the process of them trying to put it in there, knowing that the Senate was going to kill the bill and lose this good legislation.
Tabling
So-
it means to kill it, though.
Well, tabling, yeah, tabling
So you would have had
The
it
amendment.
killed way back there.
the
before-
amendment, it was, so it couldn't be introduced, okay? But the tabling was defeated. But I supported the table, me and other Republicans. They make it sound like it was just me and the Democrat. Well, there were other Republicans too
I see them.
that understood what was going on. Okay, they then, since the tabling was defeated, they then made an amendment to put that language in the bill again, thinking I'm not against it. It was just the process of them putting it in this Senate bill because I knew the Senate was going to kill the bill and we lose everything. Not only do we lose that bill, the Senate basically, hearing, they weren't even going to take this men versus, taking men or men playing women's sports. They weren't even going to take that language up the rest of the year because it was down to the wire. So I again, didn't agree to the amendment, but it still got in, okay? Once it got in, I then supported 187 with that language in there. Because I'm going, I tried to keep it out because of what the Senate was saying. And you
So you didn't want to play chicken, is what you're saying.
Yeah, because I knew the Senate, because I knew when Huffman and McCauley and the rest of the leadership, I mean, I knew they were, you know, and instead we had people over here, they wanted to pontificate, like, hey, you know, they didn't, I don't know if they really cared about getting it passed, because what happened when that bill passed out of the House, which I supported, you know, 187 with that language in, I supported getting it out of the House. It went over to the Senate and they said, we're not concurring, and it died. And that's what happened. And not only did that die, but we never had a chance the rest of that General Assembly to pass any type of language. That's why we had to wait in the next General Assembly, and that's where House Bill 68 came in, which I supported, as I always had, and I also co-sponsored the bill. You know, that was the one with Representative Glick, you know, putting in, and it also included the issue of where people under 16, they had to be at least 16 before they had sex changes. Because we were hearing stories where these kids, like 4 or 5 years old,
Yeah.
you know, were being changed. And so that was included in that bill. It
Is that the
became
one
bill.
DeWine vetoed?
He vetoed the 68 because of that issue. He agreed with
Because of the transitioning age?
right, yeah. Yeah,
He
that's,
thought it was okay for children to be transitioned at
well,
45.
he was getting, I felt, misinformation out
Maybe
there.
acting was in his ear.
Well, I don't know.
I don't
I
know.
mean, you'll have to ask him, but he vetoed that. But he was okay with the men not playing women's sports part of that bill, but it was that part there. I was in the position where I was trying to count votes to make sure that we had enough votes to overturn DeWine's veto on that bill. And we were able to do that. The bill, you know, was overturned and became law. That is the story I have tried to tell I've told my opponent, I've told his team, I have always supported legislation to keep men from playing women's sports.
See, that's the reason why we want to hear all
Oh,
sides
yeah,
of the story,
no.
not just.
I mean, I would love to have him come in and be here when I say this, because I'm not gonna, because there's situations where, you know, people have gone up to him and says, you know, why are you lying about Jim Hoops' record? You profess to be a Christian. And he said, well, Jim Hoops is lying. And the lady said, well, no, he's not. And then he just kind of went, Jim Hoops is lying, pointed his finger at her, and walked away. I mean, I just get very disappointing because of that issue. Because that seems to be a big issue out there that we have to deal with.
It is a very big issue.
But that's what happened.
So what would it take? I know I've been reading a lot. This is all on you.
I mean, does
This is all-
that
it
make
makes
sense?
sense.
I mean,
and
that's what happened.
I know
I mean,
that these bills get filled with garbage.
Yeah.
And it goes from one desk to the next, and how is this bill gonna
well,
suit that person?
I'll give you another example.
Um,
There's another one with the gun owners. If you notice, I got a rating or high rating with NRA, and another one with Buckeye Firearms. But this other group, Ohio Gun Owners, they went from a C- now down to an F today. I saw that.
Yeah, because,
Well, it went from a C- to an F because now they're saying I did not return money from some money I received from somebody
yep.
that was against, I don't know, I'm not sure. I mean,
It was
it's
okay.
amazing
It
the
was PAC
stuff.
money that you didn't return. They offered it to you and you didn't say no thank you.
I don't even know what PAC money they're talking about. If you notice, they don't even say what it is. It's just a PAC out
But
there.
don't you know what money's coming in to your
You have
campaign?
lobbyists, they represent this group, this group, this group. You have no idea what these lobbyists, I mean, you just, you know, they come to your fundraisers and they say, hey, I'll give you $500. You have to report it from what
Right.
lobbyists.
Yeah.
But you don't know all, I mean, you can look into the records on who they represent, and some of them represent, you know, 50 different groups.
But that's why you would have the obligation to return it or no, right? Once you do that, you have to have someone doing the research to find out, well,
I don't do the research
Lucas
on
County, what, I can't say it, Captain Cabbage, that's what I call him.
Yeah.
Captain Cabbage,
Yeah.
The mayor.
I know who you're
Okay.
talking about.
Him and Gherkin, they returned money that they had gotten from, I don't know the exact name of the PAC. that
Right.
They got money from, they returned it because
Okay.
it was against their beliefs.
So
Um,
I'm just curious, I'd really like to kind of hone in on that a little bit. So who in your campaign or in your office, whoever, goes through these PAC monies and says, okay, Mr. Hoops, this is not who we are, we can't take this money.
I don't have anybody.
You don't have anyone
No.
to do that. So you've accepted the money and now the, which gun organization found this out?
The Ohio gun owners.
Ohio gun owners
Right.
say, no bueno, and you
But
get a bad
they could do
score.
that with any PAC.
Well, for
I mean,
sure,
it-
for
it's
sure,
a-
but
it's
I think the
political-
PACs need to be done away with, and I think we need to go to single item bills.
I'm
That's
just surprised that your campaign, I'm not attacking you, I'm just simply surprised that someone, anyone, you or anyone, doesn't have someone on staff to go through those PACs and go, we don't want their money.
I don't have money to do that.
I see, okay, so.
I mean, I'm not
I
a
understand.
full-time.
I understand, and
I mean, we'd have to
I-
have more people hired to do those things. I mean, I just
Honestly.
trust, you know, it could be like $250. They didn't even say the amount. They didn't even
the
say
amount.
who
You don't
it
have
was.
researched,
I
amount?
haven't seen that.
you haven't seen
It
the
just-
amount
This
either?
just
Okay.
came out. I mean,
Okay.
today, and but I wanna talk about. But I mean, I understand. You know, if it was, you know, $10,000 or
Sure,
something, and
I
if
understand.
it was one PAC, yeah, I'm not gonna take something from you know, Planned Parenthood. You know, PACs
They
like
could
that.
be hidden in another PAC though, and you would never know. You know?
Well, they have to-
Organization to protect
That's-
women from poverty.
And
Yeah.
what I found
And
too
you would be
is
accepting Planned Parenthood's money.
Well,
when
if
you-
you
when
want
you're
to do
looking
that
at
for
these
me,
bills-
I ask you.
Honestly, sir, and this is not, please know, this is not an attack on you. Every candidate should have someone researching.
Right.
And I understand you don't have the funds to hire someone, and that's unfortunate. Cause I
Well-
think it's really
and
important.
that's how to keep transparent and
In this
your integrity
day, when
and-
you got
yeah.
Well, the
I
key, the important thing is what you vote on. I think that's more important. You know, because I can tell you, none of these lobbyists, I don't care how much money they give me, the PACs give me, I am gonna continue to listen to my constituents on how I vote. Because the thing I go into, this is important to me, when I look at legislation, I first look at, is it constitutional? Number 2, is it good for my district? And number 3, is it good for the state of Ohio? And that's what I've always done. No monies is gonna dictate, you know, and then they may find out, well, they may not give it to me the next time because, you know, I didn't, you know, do what they wanted to do, which I feel is illegal.
Is it constitutional? Is it good for my state? And what was
No,
the
is
third?
it is it constitutional? Is it good for my district, which is just in this case now District 1?
Yeah,
And then is it good for the state of Ohio?
and good for the
I
state.
mean, that's always been my,
So if I hear you correctly with this whole PAC thing, because I never knew this. I never knew that each candidate does not have someone in place to find out where this money's coming from.
No.
That's shocking to me.
Right.
But
well, there might be somebody, but I can tell you if there is something that's way out there. I mean, the lobbyists, you know, like I said, they represent 15 to 20 to 30 different organizations.
I
Well, that
understand
money
that.
they gave me may be from those organizations and not from this one here that
I
they're
find
talking
that
about.
appalling because
Why?
because you're taking money from people that you don't want their money. It got you into office, but what I'm saying in your defense, I don't find your actions appalling. I find it appalling that the money could come in and you don't know where it's coming from necessarily. That's
it's
what's
just-
appalling.
Yeah.
Not that you accept. I mean,
Most
Okay.
people do their household budgets, and if I had money coming into my account, I went, where's that money coming from? Because I don't want to pay it back if I don't have to. But you know, you look at
Right.
the same thing with money coming out of your accounts. you
Right.
know,
But see,
it's-
all
it's
I
a
see,
checks and
all I
balances.
see is a lobbyist who represents like 20 different groups. They give me $1,000. All I see is that it came from that lobbyist. Now,
Right.
where they got that $1,000, I don't know where that's at.
That's crazy. So what
No,
you're,
I mean, you
I-
look at I bet you can look at every legislator.
I understand.
And
I
I
hear,
it's the
I
same
hear
way.
you. I
By
hear you
looking at the
100%.
bills and looking at the quick little one-liner on what the bill is supposed to cover, sometimes they're way off. They're worded differently
Yeah.
than
Well,
what is actually in
I can-
the gravy
So
of
I
the
can tell
bill.
you, if that's how these lobbyists work, they're just losing their money, because again, you have to look at my voting record.
Yes.
And that's what determines, and I can tell you, it's not gonna be based on the money I get, but I will get money from groups because of the way I vote on issues. You know, if
What I-
I'm
what I-
And that's what I
pro-business,
wanted, that's what I wanted
Yeah.
to kind of round this up,
Yeah,
and maybe we
yeah.
could move on to something else.
Yeah.
Just by saying, you're saying, they're giving you money, and you're like, could be their loss, because I'm not gonna vote according to
No.
the amount of money they
No.
gave
I
me,
mean,
because.
yeah, I think that's
I
a
think
But
given.
they know-
That's a given. Whatever is what it's going to be.
but again, they
Yeah.
know I'm gonna listen to their concerns, because I'll listen to people. But I'm like, I remember when I had my first time down there, I had the the group Planned Parenthood come in, and the first thing we started talking, and I finally said, we could just agree is that if you would disallow abortions. I just said that, and they kind of got up, and we had a cordial, because I'm trying to change their minds too. When you talk about like the right to life, I've supported every right to life issue. I've been endorsed by the Ohio Right to Life. I supported the heartbeat bill. I support, but I think we also need to look at how are we going to change the hearts and minds of our future generation, because right now with this, because of the change in the Constitution, we have mothers coming over to Ohio to get abortions, and that is just heartbreaking. And so how do we change the hearts and minds? And I supported the bill Baby Olivia, which now is going to require from 6th grade up, or in 6th grade, where they have to watch a film on just how a baby is born. Things like that. We have to change the hearts and minds of these people. And even the women who've had an abortion, we have to be there, to support them, because it's turning inside them when they finally figure out what they did. And then the other thing is working on legislation dealing with adoptions, making that easier and cheaper, and then also foster care. Doing those type of things that we have to look at. But the biggest issue is how are we going to change the hearts and minds so that we undo what we did?
I think we need to
So.
go back to supporting the families as a whole. And
Well,
but
yeah.
we're so far from that right now.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of found ourselves in the next issue that we could talk about too. So did Right to Life endorse you, or are they just supporting you?
Ohio Right to Life endorsement.
Endorsed you,
Yep.
okay, thank you for that. Because as I shared when I introduced myself, this is a topic near and dear to my heart.
Yes.
So when you say make adoption easier and cheaper, what are your concrete ideas to do
Well,
that?
I think, one of the things here is that a birth mother could still come back if they, if somebody
In Ohio, you can
in
do
Ohio,
that, yes.
you could come back, you have like a year.
So that's not a change, that's something that's
Well,
already
I
in
would
place.
like to change, because
No,
if
I don't understand.
if
It's
you,
already
okay,
in
hold on,
place.
let me explain. If you have a baby, okay, and you give it up for adoption,
You can
okay,
change your mind.
you could
within
change, you have
year.
a whole year to change your mind. And what I would like to see is once, you give the baby up, it becomes part of the family of the young parents that adopted the parent. Because as a young couple, if that's always in the back of your mind, are people going to want to adopt?
Right.
They just, because you become attached.
So
If
you're
a
saying
white
you're not
family,
in
it's
favor
really
of
hard.
that?
No, I'm in favor
Of the mother being able to come back a year?
No, I am
Okay,
not.
okay,
No.
that's where I was confused.
Yeah.
So I think we also need to change the language, because you used the wording when a woman gives her baby up. That's problem number one. Because that says, I'm giving my baby away. It lacks love. The sounding of the word, and language is important, as we know.
Well, this
in
is just
day
a
and age.
concept. This
I
is something
understand,
we
but
have
the
to look
wording
at.
is very, because the pro-aborts and the Democrats, they're masters at using words
Sure.
against us. So
Well, we
have
are
to,
sometimes too.
we have to fight fire with fire. So when you say, give my baby up, instead we should be saying, place my baby for adoption.
Sure.
The wording matters. I will place my baby in the arms of someone who's more capable than
Mhm.
I at this time in my life. Not, I will give my baby up.
Well,
You
what's
see
your?
the difference?
Oh,
It
yeah,
sounds
yeah, no.
way different.
And I don't disagree with you. What's your thoughts on IVF?
I am against IVF. This is one important topic that I disagree with President Trump on. I think there was a story recently where a very Caucasian-looking couple gave birth to a very dark-skinned baby. This was not their intention. There was a mix-up in the in vitro process, and the wrong baby was
Okay, let me-
implanted
So
in
what,
her
what,
womb.
Let me ask you
the
this.
DNA show that it wasn't biologically.
I don't know all the ins and outs.
Because white couples could have.
Well,
Black.
the reason I bring this
I don't know
up,
about that, but
you
Yeah.
see
Yes,
this little
it is
guy
true.
here? This is my grandson. He was done by IVF.
okay,
Our daughter had one egg. This was it.
okay.
And when I hear people saying that it's immoral,
Right.
which
right.
my opponent did at a right time, and I don't want to get involved because I understand what you're
agree
saying, but
with
I'm just
Rito on
saying,
that. Yeah,
I'm not happy with that. When they call
I
my
understand.
daughter being immoral, because this was the only way they had have a child. I think it's something we need to continually discuss, but not demonize people who deal with that issue.
Right.
and
I
that's
think- I think
important,
some-
and I think again, language is what's important. No one's demonizing your daughter.
Well, he did.
But what he might, and he might need to work on his language and his delivery as well. It's
And my
it's-
wife almost got up and was ready to.
I
Luckily-
get you. I would have.
I
I
understand.
would have. You know me. I would have.
But let's
So
go
I'm-
on
so I'm
because we're not
going
gonna.
on
I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whatever.
So
Well,
as far as
the other-
pro-life issues go, so when it comes to rape and incest, what is your position on abortion?
Right now, I feel that we need to look at that because I feel because of the constitutional issue, that's the reason why we have the Constitution the way it is. I mean, I would support not having exemptions, but I would also, because that question was asked. In fact, the Ohio Right to Life had two choices. I agreed with both of them. And this other group, the Toledo group, asked me the same question. And I said, yeah, I would support if this was the only thing that we could get on the ballot for exceptions, because here's my thinking on it. And this is, I struggle with this one. We have over, maybe 95% of them aren't because of rape, incest, and
Right.
the mother's life, okay?
Correct.
So let's look at this 95%, because right now, because of this constitutional issue, we have people coming in and thousands of babies are being killed right now because of what we allowed to happen here. We have to come together somehow, like I said, change the hearts and minds of young women, and and those are, I think, some of the things we need to discuss.
And the problem is that there's a disconnect because
Oh, yeah,
these
I know.
where these states where the people automatically, we have a friend that lives not in Ohio, in another state, and they ended up having to bring a niece to Ohio for an abortion, and they paid for it even. The thing is, these people they have in their head that it's illegal, so they've got to go to another state where it's legal. There is no doctor that if it's the mother's life and the baby is not viable, that they are not going to do a DNC to save the mother's life. There is no doctor that's going to say, I can't do that because, it's.
Well, those are the
I'll
things
go
that
to
we
jail
have
for
to
that.
discuss.
There's so many
Yeah.
gray areas when it comes
Yeah.
to that. Just like, and I know on the other hand of it, I had a miscarriage, and when I got the bill in the mail, it listed on there that it was a therapeutic abortion. I flipped out, and I could have killed somebody, because that was far from it. Just seeing that word, and it's like, it was horrible thing to read, I had no control over it.
Yeah.
So there's some gray areas, and that all has
Well,
to
I know,
change.
and that's what we have. I don't want to see any more abortions. I mean, you hear of stories where a person was raped, the baby, and that's great. I mean, the baby survived or was born, and
That's
but
where
I think
we need
it's
to-
something we need to discuss, because if not, we're never going to get this language changed.
Family unit has to be the most important thing
Yep.
that our government puts in their priorities.
Well,
There's too many
yeah.
families it's too easy to get divorced. It's too easy for things to get tough and the guy to get up and leave. Or the woman. It goes either way. But as a country or as a state or locally, we need to give incentives to families that are together.
Well, I asked a priest why he thought, this abortion constitution issue failed. He said, Jim, I think a lot of people don't like abortion, but they didn't want government telling them what to do.
Disagree with his answer.
Well, that's what he said.
Well, and it goes back to what you said. Well, that's one priest, and it depends on the priest, because there's a lot of liberal priests in the Catholic Church that I wouldn't accept their answer. And I love my church. I'm
Sure.
a very active Catholic.
Sure.
I love my faith, but I don't always agree with the priests
Sure.
and the Pope.
Sure.
Okay. However, I think it goes back to your point about changing people's hearts.
Yep.
Because all the years that I spoke to teenagers, and mainly at Central Catholic High School, I spoke there for over 15 years, promoting the pro-life, pro-chastity message,
Yep.
not just saying no to sex before marriage, but saying yes to so many other beautiful
Yep.
things.
Yep. Yep.
It's not just about.
Do you know Linda Tice?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
We've
yeah.
we've talked about this issue many times. You can call her and say, who's we talked about this, and Linda will say yes. I
So
know.
my point being is, when you talk to people, when I talked to teenagers for many years, and it helps them to think about things in a different way. And just because I was at Central Catholic High School all those years, it doesn't mean that all those kids were pro-life there. Some of them came in my presentation with a major chip on their shoulder.
Sure.
Because they knew I was going to be against abortion. But I was more in favor of saying yes to life and beautiful things, right?
Well-
and understanding the beauty of the unborn child, understanding the beauty of saving yourself till marriage,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that's completely opposite of what Planned Parenthood's work is.
Yeah. No,
And
I
when
don't
it-
agree with Planned Parenthood.
And when it comes to rape and incest, they say, well, who in their right mind would force a young girl to give birth to a baby when she's been raped or she's been subjected to incest? Well, here's the studies. The studies have shown that there's a very minute chance of becoming pregnant in a rape. Number one, because of the stress, the trauma of
Right.
the situation. Just that. And then secondly, when you say to the woman, well, I'm sorry, ma'am, you're pregnant now and it's a result of the rape, well, now you're going to traumatize her again by offering her abortion as the only option. You must abort this baby because you would not want to carry this monster's baby, right?
Well, I would say
and that's a wrong way to sell that's a wrong way to, sell was a bad word, a wrong way to help that woman understand that the sin of the father should not be imposed upon the innocent baby. That baby's innocent.
No,
of the
and
father's
that's why I
crime.
struggle with, I'm
It
just
is a huge
telling you.
struggle.
I'm not gonna come in here and say I'm against, because I'm just telling you, I struggle with that issue.
It's very
because
hard.
of the things that you talk about.
Sure.
But I also know, right now, we have thousands of babies being aborted here in Ohio because of our groups not coming together and figuring out how do we deal with this issue.
And to circle back to that priest's answer.
Well,
why-
it wasn't, this was before
No,
the
please,
priest.
let me finish. So circling back to his answer, I would say that the way that was written up was so convoluted that I don't think the average Ohioan
they
could
didn't.
even understand the
No.
language. I think that's why it went through, because people didn't
Well-
even understand what they were saying yes
Well,
to.
somehow we have to get it back to where we do not allow it to happen.
We make it
Oh.
unthinkable. We make
Yeah.
it unnecessary.
Yeah. So,
So, because it is a constitutional amendment now, it was 50% plus one or whatever to vote it in, right?
right,
Would it have to be what, 2/3 to vote it out?
no,
or
it would be 50.
It is 50 plus
0.1,
one?
yeah.
Okay.
I was involved with trying to get the Constitution issue where you had to have at least 60%. But that failed because we had, people said, well, you're doing that because of the abortion issue.
Yeah.
Because 10 years before, everybody supported that, 60%. Well, they kind of supported 55, but we tried to get it 60. But because that failed now, and that's what concerns me too, are all these issues that people are coming up with, because it's so easy to change the Constitution. Because what people are seeing is, the Republicans, the conservative controls the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, the governor. Well, the last thing is, let's just change the Constitution. And if we get too far over, either way, people are gonna go, well, yeah, we don't want government telling us what to do. And so they're gonna continually find ways to change the Constitution. I mean, we have to be very aware of, what people are thinking out there, or we could end up losing everything.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's what concerns me with some of these issues, especially social issues. And somehow we have to get back to, figuring out how we work together on this issue. So,
That was a good question.
yeah.
Thank you for asking that.
No, because, so I really don't want to see it at 60% now until we get this other issue taken care of.
So you're saying we could revisit the whole,
Oh, we could, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Now, when we
well,
do that,
when you figure out a way or time, call me.
I think it's gonna take some time now, because people aren't ready to,
Well, the pro-aborts, they're not pro-choice. That again is a bad word.
Oh, I
Bad
agree.
wording.
I agree, but
It's
what we
death
have
for a
to,
person, a baby, and a mother is
Yeah.
left to live with
Yeah.
that decision.
yeah,
All right,
What time is it?
I got a few things to say real quick.
Okay,
And
right.
then
I
we need to,
also have a question.
okay.
Yeah, let's
Go
let
ahead,
Noah,
go
yeah.
ahead.
So you had mentioned earlier about wanting the solar, wind, and then the data centers possibly also leave it up locally. Are you familiar with the situation that kind of happened with the Ryder Solar Field in Fayette?
Yep.
So what are your opinions on that then?
Well, I was disappointed in the decisions by the siting board. I think there was enough people that said they didn't want it. I think the problem came up was timing, of getting, I know the commissioners, they waited and waited to make sure they knew where people stood. And what I was told, there's a process that you had to go through. And when they finally sent down that they were against it, the decision had already been made. And so we tried to undo that, but it was already made to do that. I'm trying to make sure, because there's people that are concerned of the drainage issue, of just where, You know, because when you start moving dirt and things like that, it could create some issues. So I wanna make sure that the drainage is done right, because in the last one, that became an issue because the company did not ask the soil and water or the engineer's office because EPA came in and said you needed to build a retaining pond. And this was, I found out about this after the fact.
Yeah.
And so when they built that, they redid how the water runs, and it created problems. Instead, the company should have gone to soil and water, to the engineer's office and say, hey, we need to do this, how should we do it? And I wanna make sure this time it does occur the right way.
And that's where if there was verbiage in the townships, and if the townships had the
Well, if they would've had,
regulations, that they would, I'm trying to think of, what's the word, the
what regulations?
regulations or whatever for their area, then that would have been covered. But because I think Ohio has been lax, especially our part of the country, we've just been
Well,
lax
I'll
and letting things go. And this is how things come in, and that's what's waking a lot of people up.
Well, when Senate Bill 52 came about, and like I mentioned, it got out of the Senate and then it came into my committee. The big issue, because I was concerned that Senate Bill 52 wouldn't even pass out of the House because of property rights. Because you get into the property rights of people who actually own the land where the project was gonna take place.
Yeah.
And then you have the property rights of people around the project. And we were able to work out a solution, and one of them was, they grandfathered, some of the projects in. And that was an issue with this one up in Fayette where they grandfathered it. But then, so that became an issue too with that. So I just wanna make sure that the drainage issue is taken care of, because we also put in place where they have what they call the decommissioning, where there's money set aside and it's a bond, so that 25 years from now or whenever the project is done, there's money there, and it has to be upgraded every 5 years. So we're still trying to work, talking with the Seiler family, that they were very affected by it.
Yeah, Jerry Seiler.
Yep.
I've
Yep.
talked to him, and he had mentioned about even the animal patterns
Yeah.
walking through. That
Well-
just feels after they put that pre-existing one that's in there now in,
Right.
that it's just the animals have ravaged this field there because the animals couldn't go through their natural,
Yeah.
ruts anymore.
What was that word you used? The drainage issue, and then you said
Decommissioning.
decommissioning.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that property can never be recommissioned into farm ground after all of that.
New topsoil has to be brought in to be able
Very
to
deep,
redo it.
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's crazy the amount that they'd have to bring in.
I mean,
And then what
again,
are they gonna
it's
do? What are they
people
gonna do with it?
who sell their land, and what happens, a lot of times it's people who don't even live around here anymore,
Yes.
or their families.
Yeah.
so they're gone.
Or people that own the land and rent it out.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
That's the one that we're seeing there with the one they want to put in Wasion. The one attorney. It's the attorney.
Dan's
right?
thumb,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which
He
one in
owns a
Waseon?
lot of the
They
property.
want to put it. It's out near Homecoming Park. They're
Oh, really?
just down the road, almost out of town, right? Yeah.
It's out there by the golf
It was like 40
Yeah,
acres
by-
or something
by
like
the
that.
golf
See, I have a bill which is community energy, where you could put like a solar, but it's more like a 3 or 4 megawatt, where you put it on rooftops.
Right,
Or in
Right.
brownfields.
right.
And I also put in place, because again, I put in place where you still have local control on whether or not you allow those type of projects in place. It's not these big ones that you put out in the farm fields.
Right.
I
Why
want
not-
to warn everyone, they're going to start getting a little nervous
Yeah,
about
we
I
need to
know.
wrap
back
up with
here.
it
Let
like
me,
the
let me
next 10
finish up real
minutes.
quick here.
Okay.
So,
I'm gonna say
We're
like
back.
10 minutes.
10
Okay,
minutes.
we're back to the House Bill 186. Okay,
Okay.
I've been doing tons and tons of reading, and my brain is a little bit mushy, so I gotta go off this, but you, shut up. But you had talked about 1.7 billion in property tax relief through the House Bill 186.
Right.
Okay,
And that's
But-
going forward. That's money, in fact, they even say it could be up to 3 billion. that
Okay.
people aren't gonna pay because of the changes we made with those 5 bills.
But the thing is, when I started doing some more deep looking further, there's been some independent analyses that have been done that have showed that the majority of the recent state tax cuts, including the push to eliminate capital gains taxes, disproportionately favor high income earners and business owners, while the bottom 80% of the Ohioans, which is us, we have only seen about $42 in annual savings.
Okay. Is this
that is
property or income tax?
This is tied with House Bill 186.
Okay,
Policy Matters Ohio reporting that 70% of historical tax cut benefits have flowed to the top 20% of the earners. So that's
Okay.
still, in both of those studies that I had read, they both say that only the top echelon is receiving it. And again, it trickles down, we pay for it. You know, housing prices are too high because people are coming in and buying them, and if somebody's gonna if there's a little house and it's worth $20,000 and somebody sells it for $100,
sure.
okay, that means the next door neighbor has got a $15,000 house they can sell for 90, you know, type of
Well,
a
I
thing.
think Policy Matter is looking at the trend that's occurred over the last 5 or 6 years, or even 10, I would say 20 years, because what's occurred, you know, what I see happening, and this is back when I, you know, was a legislator the first time, got out of it and then got back in, is, you know, trying to bring business in. We put in place abatements,
Right.
you know, where they, you know, to entice companies to come in. Well, you do that, and then we pass bills that exempt certain things, you know, certain buildings from having to pay property taxes. And then we put in place for businesses where they're exempt, like the first 250,000, they're exempt. You know, so you start doing that, and then we did things with the homestead exemptions, you know, things like that. And what I see occurring is that this bucket where you have businesses and individuals paying taxes, it begins to shrink, so that the remaining people are the ones that are paying, you know, the taxes where everybody else is exempt. And I think we have to relook at that. But the problem, like with abatements, you know, we're competing against Indiana, you know, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Kentucky, Michigan. And so we have to be very careful on how we do that. I mean, it's like the sales tax with the data centers. I mean, I think that was put in place to compete, to try to bring in, you know, not just the data center, because that wasn't back then, but just other companies, you know, putting the tax exemption there. So those are all the things that we have to look at, you know, with the policy, because the other thing too is with the sales tax or the income tax, we did a flat 2.75 for everybody. You know, so we've lowered it, and yeah, the wealthier are going to see the effect. I mean, they're paying more, but they also, you know, and that's
They
why
pay
they're
the
going to
same
see.
amount, same percentage,
Right.
you know,
Right. And
that's fine, but yeah.
that's why I've always, you know, where we had different levels, you know, we should just pay a flat tax, like, you know, on the federal level too. Let's just say it's 10%, you get a personal exemption, and that's it. Well, you know who fights that are your attorneys and your tax, you know, attorneys saying, wait a minute, we'll lose our, wouldn't it be nice just to take your revenue, your income, and you just say, okay, 10%, and that's it.
Yeah.
But we put all these other, and then we don't know who's paying what, because you have this big form, and I think that's why we wanted a flat rate of 2.75. And with the property taxes, what basically 186 did, real quick, is what was happening is we put in place where they'll still get some type of increase, but it'll be based on the cost of living, which could be like 2 or 3 or 4% a year, okay? Whereas before, currently, because of what happened, you were paying taxes that increased by 30, 40%. And what we did, we put it down to 2 or 3%, and we take the difference, and then there's a credit in place. And so there's a savings there going forward of the, you know, whatever the number, the 2 billion or whatever, because what made this more complicated is that every county is different. You know, they do a reappraisal or a triennial, different years. They're not all done the same year. There's there's 3 different tranches of groups of counties that do that. And this can get, I only understand because I was a county auditor that dealt with this stuff, but I'm still trying to learn all this stuff. So that's what we did with 186.
Okay. You said you have a question? Go ahead.
Who do you recommend, or who would you think would be the best between Josh, Derek, Alina, and Madison? I'm
Okay.
up in the air. I don't know who I'm voting for
Well,
yet.
I'll just tell you what I see the
What
pros
your
and
opinion
cons.
is.
You know, Leah, I really enjoyed her, because the main thing is who can beat Marcy Cassett.
Amen.
I was involved back when the Democrats had controlled that seat for a long time. Then Ed Weber ended up beating that Democrat during 1980, 82. The next year, Marcy beat Ed Weber. Okay, then I got involved because I was the youth for Frank Venner, because he ran against Marcy. In fact, I had young
Those were
people,
the days.
we had 10 people, youth, standing up where the cars going by, honk if you're for Venner. And so I've been, but she's a
forgot
tough one.
about that.
I get along with her. I don't agree with about 99% of her policies, but
But the thing is, we're not
Right.
gonna agree to everything you vote one way or
right,
another.
but I'm saying,
Yeah.
so that's the kind of candidate we're looking at here, because Frank Venner, when he ran, everybody knew him. But to give you an example, he came into the Bob Evans one morning, we ate breakfast, he didn't say hi to anybody in there, and everybody knew who he was. So going forward, I see Josh Williams as somebody that I think could beat him. Josh Williams is a hard
He is one of the
worker, beat
hardest working
Marcy.
men there is. He really is.
He really dives into stuff.
Yeah.
Now, he always says he's got 103 different bills, which, he does, but it's I think he finds everything, but that's the way he is. He's wired to do that. In fact, he tells me his wife gets upset because he's in bed looking at stuff and she
Oh,
wants
yeah.
to go to sleep.
I totally
So you
understand.
have somebody there where I think he could hold his own, in debating. He had a debate with her at the Henry County Farm Bureau,
I see.
I
back
missed
and forth.
that.
So,
Oh my gosh.
so you have
Why wasn't I
him,
there?
then you have Derek, who also worked good with legislation, and he has name recognition. He almost beat her, but unfortunately there was a libertarian that took away 12,000 votes, and he only lost by 1,000.
Yeah.
Then you have Madeline Sheehan, Madison Sheehan.
Sheehan, yeah.
I'm getting to know her, but her issue is she came in late.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a lot of people that have endorsed, like Derek and Josh, because they know.
Yeah.
Madison has, I feel, more experience federally because of the
Yes.
job she was doing.
Yeah.
And she
Same with
presents
Aaliyah.
herself,
Yeah, same with Aaliyah. With
and
her
Aaliyah too, but I think with Madison, she has some support, countrywide or nationally, but again, I think the Lucas County Republican Party, didn't they say they weren't gonna endorse anybody that wasn't in the, I thought I saw something where they weren't
There
gonna,
was. I'm sorry.
well, anyhow, I think, so I think those three could have a good shot of beating Marcy. Then you just have to look at which one do you get
I
along with.
personally go back and forth between
Yeah.
Josh and Aaliyah. Part of me keeps on saying, you know what? Maybe it's going to take a strong woman to beat
Yeah,
Marcy.
and Aaliyah has a story. When you
she's-
talk to her about her
Yes.
story, she
It's
talks about,
very-
did you talk to her about being the key to the
Yes.
Senate thing?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
So real quick, I just have a quick statement, and then but I want to thank you very much for coming out
Yes,
here.
thank you.
Yeah.
We threw this together last minute. Our normal meeting was a couple weeks ago.
No, I
or a week
appreciate it.
ago,
I
and
appreciate it.
I appreciate it. But basically, Representative Hoops, we aren't just general people, we're ratepayers. We are, let me start over again. I'm sorry. We aren't just general people or ratepayers on a balance sheet. We are the residents who built this state. When you prioritize the secrecy of data centers under the NDAs, over the transparency of local government or tax cuts for the wealthy, over relief for the middle class, you aren't leading. You're following the money. We are watching your record closely, and not just you in particular, we're looking at everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And expect a representative who listens to our voices in the sunlight, not one who deals in the dark room behind our backs. And I appreciate for your time, and I just want you to take that thought with you, that we're real people that live here, and real people in our county have had it. Real people are stepping up, and we have more people involved in organizations and groups. The amount of signatures that we've gotten for the data centers, and I mean, it goes on and on. To me, that's very refreshing. But you, as a candidate, take that back with you, that we're all human people and we live here.
Absolutely.
Okay.
No, I
We're
live
not
here
just-
too. I live in this district. So, well, if you ever see anything, you know,
We're wrapping up.
my brochure actually has my cell number on there, so you can call me
Oh,
anytime.
you got mine.
So, well, thank you for having me tonight.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
We just didn't